From what I understand, the railroad came through about 1900. So prior to that, if you can imagine, huge, massive western red cedar trees, as well as other conifers and other vegetation right down to the saltwater. Basically, it's an inland sea. And with this creek, we have this creek coming down through here. We have one giant estuary. I'm Ranger Doug, and I've been a park ranger here for about 25 years. And we do have salmon here, so in our kiosk here we have a nice display of salmon. It's mostly coho and chum are the two species of salmon that are going to be coming in here. Another interesting thing about this gulch and this park is that this creek is spring fed. So even though it hasn't rained for quite a while, this creek is mostly being fed by springs that are coming up from underground. Someone developed the lower section down here, and they had a country club, and they had a swimming pool, indoor swimming pool, plus a big dance hall. And the remnants of the dance hall is right up here. It must have been a pretty massive structure. I heard it had a cedar shingle roof and a really big fireplace, and whoever, the guy that was doing the country club, he was, I guess, pretty good at construction. So it was quite the dance hall. We have a bunch of waterfalls. When the park was built, you can't see them back in the brush there. There's 7 waterfalls that are ideal for salmon habitat. So you can go over here when the salmon are running and watch, from standing on top of this structure. Right up here on the right is a really big remnant from a western red cedar tree. That was the tree the loggers were coming to get, was the western red cedar back in 1900. From about 1900 to 1920, they logged out this entire gulch. And here's a cedar stump. It was a pretty big tree when it was cut down. If you can imagine, this tree was probably, at least 100 feet tall or more, and probably 500 years old or more. Okay, here's the big leaf maple, one of our native trees. They accumulate the most moss of the trees in the Pacific Coast forest. We always tell kids that this is the easiest one to remember because the leaves are going to be huge and they're maple leaves. I do a lot of trail work, mostly keeping the water flowing through it. We have culverts and we have side ditches. Try to keep the water from going on to the trail. One thing about the salmon again, the salmon will be coming in here. One thing that scientists discovered, probably in the last 20 years or so, that when they go out to the ocean, there's a particular type of nitrogen that they pick up in the ocean, just from their bodies being out there, eating the food out there and that sort of thing. It's a particular type that is highly nutritious for this environment in here. So the salmon comes back, comes up this creek, and then goes deep into the forest, and then it dies, and its body decays and distributes nitrogen into the environment. So that's kind of interesting. It's always connected, That's one thing about here. I've noticed that everything's really connected out here in nature. It's a great inland sea, created by glaciers 15,000 years ago. All this water came in from the ocean. When the glaciers receded, we had a huge temperature change, and what we're looking at now would have been 5,000 feet of ice. And one other component about the salmon, making it easier for them as well as easier for people, is there's a project in the works right now with the Snohomish County Parks Department that we're going to change this tunnel, because this right now is about 6 feet wide, and the railroad has a structure that's a prefab, kind of a bridge type of structure that keep it at this height, but instead of 6 feet wide, it'll be 20 feet wide between the openings. One thing about this culvert is it has a concrete bottom. So if we are able to change from this to the bridge type structure, it'll be free flowing for the creek. There was already a couple areas where Burlington Northern had used this type of thing, but it'll be a huge benefit for salmon, as well as for people, as well as for the railroad, because people will be staying off the railroad tracks. It's 200 acres here, got someone living here and you have the equipment and all the things necessary. So it's kind of like a model of efficiency. One of the best parts about when I got this job as the park ranger was being able to share it with my family. It's a gift. I view it as a gift. I think that the one thing I've gathered probably this year and last year, because there's a lot more people coming here, they appreciate seeing a ranger. I hear that a lot, I spend a lot of time studying the environment so I can learn things every year to pass on to kids when I'm talking to them. I think that's kind of like the payoff when we can pass on the knowledge to families and kids about nature, and having a ranger here is part of that.